Hey everyone, I am Mark from On the Wrong Lead, and as you may be aware, the entire On the Wrong Lead team flew out to Del Mar this year to attend the Breeders' Cup. Two of us, myself and Caleb, ended up playing in the Breeders' Cup betting challenge, and much like last year, I wanted to do a video where I do a bit of a recap. I talk through things I did well, things I didn't do well, some of my thoughts going in, and some of my approaches to the tournament, and some takeaways I have. Now, not everybody is able to buy into a $10,000 handicapping tournament, but I think the stuff that I'm going to talk about, the thoughts, the approach here, are things that you can apply to your normal day at the races. How do you best lever your opinions? How do you best play your thoughts? That sort of thing. How do you trust yourself? How do you stay confident? A lot of those things that doesn't matter if you're playing $600 daily doubles or $6 daily doubles. Those all come to be very, very important in you being a profitable horse player. So I'm not going to bury the lead. Last year in 2023, I had an amazing showing. Turned my entry into almost $70,000, and this year I cashed out for $1. I basically blew up my entry, firing a big daily double late. I was trying to get into the top 10, completely whiffed, and that is what it is. Not much you can do about it. I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm going to go through, though, and I'm going to talk about some things I did well, some things I didn't do well, and as I'm doing that, you're going to probably hear myself being pretty tough on myself. I'm very, very kind of critical of my play. I'm critical of how I approach things. I want to be a better handicapper tomorrow than I was today. So I tend to be hypercritical, and don't worry about me beating myself up. This is just sort of how I approach things. So what is the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge? It is the largest, richest, and most prestigious live money tournament in the world. $10,000 to buy in. $7,500 of that goes into live money. Live money, you can place any win, place, show, exacta, trifecta, or daily double wager over the 2 days of the Breeders' Cup. I say any, there is a little caveat there. You can't play any of the new gimmick wagers. There's certain things like 2-day wagers. Those are not eligible. There's also like all turf wagers or all dirt wagers. Those are not eligible. So just the normal versions of those wagers. And you're trying to turn that $7,500 into as much money as possible. The prize pool this year, they had 585 entrants. Top prize was $442,000, and 20th got $11,700. That prize pool comes out of the other $2,500 portion of the buy-in. So it's obvious, it's just a little bit of a kind of a, I don't know, cherry on top, I guess you would say. I would play $7,500 in the 2 days of the Breeders' Cup no matter what, so I might as well buy into something like the BCBC, take some shots where there's extra money on the table should I have a really good 2 days. So I very much enjoy the format. It's something I plan to do literally every year that I possibly can going forward. The only caveat to that $7,500 of wagering that I mentioned before, there are 3 mandatory wagers on Friday, 7 on Saturday. Mandatory wagers have to come in a Breeders' Cup race, and you have to have at least $600 wagered in that race. You also have to have $7,500 in total churn. That means you need to churn your bankroll. Now, you can churn your bankroll by making show bets. You can do a lot of things like that. So there's a lot of approaches and a lot of mental aspects into how do you look at a tournament like this, and how do you best lever your opinions, put your best foot forward, and give yourself the best shot of winning. So, goals in my plan. I plan to just have fun. I'd never been to a big day of racing like the Breeders' Cup with the guys, so fun to go out and just hang out with Josh and Caleb. We ran into a million people that we know and we talk with all year round. Everybody goes to the Breeders' Cup. Like, it's the event, it's the place to go and be seen. So it was very fun to meet up with a ton of people that we know through both Discord and also Twitter people like Matt DeSantis, who hung out with us and did a bunch of content with us. Ton of fun just to kind of do that. And so enjoy the experience, enjoy the scene, say you were there when. My plan was to kind of meet my minimums on Friday and then hopefully build a little bit of a bankroll, which I could fire at some stuff later on Saturday. I did okay doing that. It wasn't great. I wanted to slam my best opinions as well, and that's something I didn't do a good job of, and I'll explain that as I go through my strengths and my weaknesses. I had a $150,000 to $175,000 target. If you watched last year, the 2023 version of the Breeders' Cup was easier from a BCBC standpoint. I think some of the races were more straightforward, and there were more slammable sequences. I was thinking $150,000 probably wins it, and I think the winner was just to take over $150,000. So I was pretty spot on with the amount I needed, and I really wanted to finish top 20 again. I think, saying, obviously, you want to go in and win, and I'm playing to win. But my real goal is top 20. You think you're going to have adversity, and if you run really well, yeah, maybe you can maybe you can win. But top 20 gets you in the prize money, and I think that for me is probably a good goal for every single year. So good things I had going this year. My handicapping was really, really good. And when I refer to handicapping, I refer to the process of putting the information together to make opinions. So it's the early stages process. So the idea of I looked at the form, I ranked horses, I looked at both time form, I looked at my BSF figs, I watched a ton of replay, I looked at clocker reports. I did all the work, and I think I did a really good job doing that. I think my opinions that came out of that process were very, very strong. Out of that whole process, I had a couple of things that I came back with. One of them was I was against most of the Japanese horses. The Japanese horses have been a force in Hong Kong and in Dubai and in Saudi Arabia and even now in Europe. I just thought that this was not a great crop that was being brought to the Breeders' Cup. I think if you looked at it realistically, there was only one or two races the Japanese actually had a shot of winning. I think they ended up winning one race. But there were smart people, smart pundits, people in the media space around horse racing that were thinking the Japanese were on 5 or 6 wins on the weekend. And I heard that from a few people. So, I was sort of subtly against Japanese horses. I had a soft fade on City of Troy. I was going to play tickets, but really not put him on top. He's a very classy horse, but you never want to bet a horse first time doing something new. And yes, his pedigree says he should be good on both surfaces, but he's not proven on both surfaces. And so a short-priced horse that's unproven doing something they've never done before is just a really scary proposition as a horse player. And I also had a hard fade on Cogburn. I had Cogburn on no tickets. I did use him underneath in some things, and I'll explain that later on. But my approach with Cogburn was I wanted no horse that had their last start at Kentucky Downs. There's a stat that goes way back that Ed DeRosa always posts. I think it's probably 64, 65 now. But effectively, there's never been a horse that's prepped in a Kentucky Downs race that's come back without a start in between to win a Breeders' Cup race. They're like 0 for 60 something now. It's a crazy statistic. So for whatever reason, those horses do not tend to come back and perform well at the Breeders' Cup. So that led me to hard fading Cogburn. I think this year I was more comfortable using prices. I did a good job of that. And I was okay tossing chalk. Being against a course like Cogburn is something that I find very uncomfortable. But I think it was better sort of really laying my opinions out there this year, at least on paper. Now, I think where I struggled a lot was playing those opinions. And let me start explaining some of that going through. So a couple of wagers that I had on that I want to walk through. And again, I have my cheat sheet down below, so pardon me looking down. I played on Friday a double that was Immersive and Lucara into Lake Victoria. I had that for $300 base. It was a Mando wager, but it was probably my highest conviction double on the day. Really liked that daily double. Immersive was not the favorite in that in the 7th race there. And I thought Lucara was a horse that had run a big fig and could step forward. Both horses ran really well. I cashed on that double. It only paid $5.50. But it was a nice confidence builder. It's always when you get into something like the BCBC, your first wager you're a little bit shaky about. You're just putting the wager in is hard. Then once you cash a wager, you really kind of settle down. So that settled me down quite a bit. Really not a bad wager. I have no issues with that. The only issue, I guess I say I have no issues, and I do have a slight issue. I wish I had staggered it a little bit. I wish I had more money on Immersive than I did Lucara. And that's always kind of a catch-22. If Lucara wins, you wish you had more on Lucara, who was a much bigger price. It was probably 4 or 5 times the price of Immersive. Immersive, I think, ended up going off the favorite, was not on the morning line, and won pretty easily. And then I thought Lake Victoria was the easiest single on the Friday card. So yeah, I thought that was a pretty good play by me. I was also very high on Citizen Bull, the horse that won the Juvie, Baffert with really good works, and I'll talk more about this horse when we get into the bad, because I think the bad was how I played the horse. But I landed on a price, and I very much had a high conviction on that price. I think that was really good, and pretty solid handicapping by me. And then when you get over into the Saturday card, probably I think where I played really well, I had Starlust, the big price that won the sprint. I was a huge fan of that horse. I did a lot of replay work. That's the horse I mentioned that I got to in replays. Horse went off, I think, 33-1, and it got up by a flared nostril, and that was into Torpedo Anna. So I had that double. I slammed a 4/1 daily double. I know people are going to shudder at the form, but I did not use any of the short prices in the sprint. So I ended up all being prices into Torpedo Anna. Now, I mentioned that was a good thing, and it was. I had it for, I think, $75. I think I had that double, and the double paid $67. So it was a pretty nice little double that I hit there. I think the biggest thing that I mentioned the good about that wager, I think where I would critique myself is Starlust was my best price play on the weekend. And I didn't have Starlust for any more than I had anybody else. I also really like the Grand Motion horse in there, the 10 horse. So again, but I should have had more money on the 4 and the 10 into the Torpedo double. I think that was a missed opportunity, and it was someplace I should have been raising a lot more money than I ended up raising there. And then I think, overall, I ended up on basically all the winners. I may have not had them on top. And I think, I'll actually put out there a good thing I did that was in a losing wager. I really like Cinderella's in race 9, and I placed a big double into the next race, that 9-10 daily double. I really like the play. I got a bad ride out of William Buick and didn't end up being successful in that play, but I think it was the right play. I actually really liked that double I had there, and I think I had that double for $1,000 or something like that. So I think all of those plays were very smart, and they were good plays. And I think my opinions were really good. The downside, which we'll get to now, is I didn't do a good job of sort of leveraging them. I tried to force plays. So going back to that Citizen Bull race, Josh about backhanded me on the way back from the track because I had loved Citizen Bull. I had been high on the horse in the stream. I had been higher on the horse. We did the stream on Tuesday before workouts came out. After workout reports came out, I was extremely high, and that horse was basically a single. The problem was, that was my second highest conviction horse of the day. Lake Victoria was my top. They were in 2 consecutive races. I should have slammed that Lake Victoria over Citizen Bull double, and I should have had it for like $2,000. And again, I say that hindsight. Maybe I only have it for $1,000. But that double paid $21. If I had that double for $1,000, that's a $21,000 swing. I am going into Saturday with a big pile of cash, and I can take shots like that Starlust shot that I talked about. I can make that much bigger, and I'm more comfortable making that a bigger wager. So I had the right horse, and again, Citizen Bull paid $16. Now, and it was, I should have played it better. The other option would be I could have just put a $1,000 win bet on Citizen Bull at 16-1. Then I go into Saturday with $16,000 on top of what I have. Again, much more maneuverability, and I can take some real big shots on spots that I had opinions. And so it's one thing where you didn't make a smart play, and therefore it turned out not to give you the choice. You didn't leverage up a play well early, therefore you couldn't leverage other plays later on. So kind of back to my goals, I did a poor job of that. So the play around Citizen Bull was just poor from my part. And I can explain to you exactly why I did it. I had the immersive into Lake Victoria double. I hate when I'm live to like a single horse and a payout leg, and then you're starting a new wager, because if Lake Victoria doesn't win, that means I now just knocked 2 shots out. I lost a lot more money. And my thought was, I'll let the Lake Victoria race go by. I'll cash that wager, and then I'll play Citizen Bull into the last race of the day, which was the Juvie Turf. Problem was, Juvie Turf was my lowest conviction play, or lowest conviction race on the day. I didn't like that race. So I played my second best opinion into the race I liked the least on the day. Just terrible. That you can't do that kind of thing. It's a spot where it's a spot where you just play the win bet because you're getting that value. And I'll also say part of the reason I didn't play the win bet is, again, this is a personal thing. You assume at something like the Breeders' Cup that the board is right. When I capped the race using morning lines, I assumed that that was just a terrible morning line and the horse would be 5 or 6 to 1. The horse started drifting up off the 12 to 1 morning line. I assumed I missed something. I assumed people were smarter than I was. The board knew. They didn't know. They weren't smarter. They were wrong. And I was right. And so I made the minimum off from a really good opinion, and that's a spot I really screwed up. And I think another spot I really screwed up was you only need to make 3 minimum wagers on Friday. I ended up making a 4th wager. I played a wager on the undercard. I've done this 2 years in a row. I played a small, it was a $300, it was a 2x3 daily double. They were all prices. It would have paid back quite nicely. It was a $50 base daily double for $300. I, though, I whiffed. And that was money. That was $300 wasted that I could have used other places. I could have WinBet Citizen Bull. I could have played that Lake Victoria Citizen Bull double with that money. I simply, I shouldn't be playing that extra wager. There's too much value in Breeders' Cup cards to be wasting value on early plays that don't have a major, that don't help you. They have to be like a 9 out of 10 conviction. They can't be like that one was, maybe a 5 out of 10 conviction type play. And then let's get into Saturday. I think where I screwed up was and again, these probably wouldn't have been screw ups if I had hit them. I played a couple of trifectas where I used Starlust, and I keyed around Starlust but I did them as trifecta key boxes. Starlust with a bunch of other horses, and I did use Cogburn in those wagers. And then I also did the same with the Graham Motion horse. So I had $300 worth of trifectas on. Now, those were, I think I was $5 base trifectas on both of those. They're not a bad approach of trying to key around a price that you like that you think hits the try. That's actually probably a fairly smart approach. The problem was I was playing those races with a mindset that they were calamity, and I had 2 horses I liked to come out of that calamity, and those were the 4 and the 10. Instead of the fact that I like 2 big prices, just win bet the stupid prices. If you like the prices, make sure you get something out of your opinion. And again, this is a situation. If I had win bet Citizen Bull or I had played that double into Citizen Bull and I have that money from Friday, I'm probably more comfortable just making a big win bet on both Starlust and the 10 horse, the Graham Motion horse. But I wasn't. So it's a spot where I didn't really best lever up my opinions. And it's really hard when you sit back and you're like, okay, my best opinion on Friday won. My second best opinion on Friday won. My best price opinion on the 2 days of the Breeders' Cup won at 33 to 1. And my best opinion on the whole 2 days of the Breeders' Cup, which was Cinderella's on Saturday, she finished a nice second. And yet I walked away with $0. There's a lot of things to say. I left a lot of money on the table. I had a lot of approaches and a lot of spots I could have done a lot better. I put up there that I didn't listen to my gut. And I think horses like New Century and horses like Starlust are those not listening to your gut. I landed on horses. I did the work. And then I kind of just didn't trust myself. I didn't believe in my handicapping. I didn't trust my gut. And that's frustrating. And I think the other thing that I'll say is most of my plays were sort of those $600 min plays. I didn't lever up the things I liked the best. And I did mention that Cinderella, so that would be the race 9 daily double. The Cinderella's into the next race was the one that I thought was a high conviction. I did lever that up. I thought I had that double for 1,000, but 600 to 1,000 is not a big enough lever up. I should have really levered up Citizen Bull. And honestly, there's even something to be said of, if Lake Victoria is your best opinion on the day, yes, you went off at 6 to 5, but $1,000 win bet on a 6 to 5 isn't a bad shot to take. It's better than trying to force a double on the undercard, So lots of spots that I had good opinions, and I just didn't lever up those good opinions. So I'm going to try to play a couple more live money tournaments that are practiced before the Breeders' Cup next year. Plan on playing the BCBC again next year. And these are things that I kind of need to work on when I'm doing those practice rounds and playing next year. I need to be a little more prepared to lose everything. I wanted, I didn't make my big all-in play, and I guess I haven't mentioned this yet. The last play that I made, I was actually up fairly decently. I had like $8,800 going into the last two races, and I played a $4,000 daily double. I played a 612 over 9. I tried to get Noble Speech or Carl Spackler over Domestic Product. Obviously, none of those three horses won. I completely whiffed. But it's a situation that I had that kind of money and I had better opinions that I didn't lever up earlier on the card because I was just trying to make my plays and make my mins and kind of live to survive to a later on point. Not a good approach. Just not a good approach. I need to be okay if I have a good opinion going broke on Friday. Or going broke the first Breeders' Cup race of Saturday or the second Breeders' Cup race of Saturday. I think it's a situation where I handicapped the card, I roughed out some plays. I need to really put it like a conviction level on my plays where I say, this is a 10 out of 10 conviction play. This is an 8 out of 10. This is a play that I'm just making to meet Amando. And if I can better differentiate those plays going in a little earlier, I would be in a much better spot, in the Breeders' Cup. or in the BCBC, I should say. And, I think also I mentioned being more adaptable to value. The reason I never had Citizen Bull as a win play in my head because I thought I was going to get 5 or 6 to 1. I need that to come into my head when I look at the horse and go, wow, I'm getting 2.5 or 3 times the price I expected to be getting. When those situations take place, you need to go, oh, geez, I'm okay zigging a little bit and just making this a win bet where it would have been a double because the value is suddenly there. Take value where it presents itself and be more adaptable to that value. And the other one that I'll mention was on Saturday. It was the Torpedo Anna into Rebels Romance Daily Double. I think that Daily Double paid $4. That was the favorite over the favorite. It was probably your two most likely favorites on the day. Was not a hard spot. I wasn't as high on Rebels as other people were, but still, that was a super easy daily double to have for a large amount of money. But again, I didn't have that in my head because I assumed that would be a Daily Double was going to pay, whatever, I don't know. Daily Double was going to pay $2. You're going to get kind of 2 for 1 implied. I didn't expect to get 4 for 1, and therefore when it came up on the board, I wasn't in the mindset of being adaptable, making that change, and making that different play. So, so a lot of things to take away, a lot of things to learn from. I did cash out for $1 in live money, learned a ton, had a lot of fun. Del Mar as a venue is a very pretty venue. For my taking, it's a little bit small to be holding the Breeders' Cup. BCBC accommodations were not what I had hoped that they would be. Was very frustrating, for anybody who's a BCBC person. The tournament players room and the guest room were separate, but a lot of people want to hang out with their guests. You couldn't get guests into the tournament play room, so therefore a huge number of people playing the tournament were playing from the guest room where they had live band and live music, and it was loud and distracting and you couldn't focus. A lot of things like that are due to the size of the venue just kind of stink. But I will say, Del Mar is a very pretty venue. It's very cool to look to the left and watch the waves crashing on the ocean. Very sort of interesting thing. You can see a picture of myself and Caleb and Matt DeSantis there, chilling out in front of the BCBC room. And also did some touring. I didn't put a photo up. We did the San Diego Zoo on Thursday, which was a great kind of clear your head day. And then on Sunday, I did the USS Midway Museum, which is a retired aircraft carrier that sits in the bay. Both of those highly recommend. Definitely will be back to San Diego, at least as a tourist, just to go around taking the sights. Gorgeous town, love the weather, very cool place to be. Didn't realize I would like it quite as much as I did. But overall, good experience. Enjoyed the Breeders' Cup. We'll definitely play the Breeders' Cup betting challenge again. Already excited for next year. Got to get through the doldrums of the winter, and can't wait to get back into next summer where I can, really get focused and prepare for some of these more live money tournaments, and hopefully next time I can take this one down. So until next time, good luck at the races.